Saudi Cup, hello and welcome to another Victor Black Masterclass video. In today's video, I'm going to be making the second of my rebuttal videos. There are many to come here. Last week, in fact, I made a rebuttal video about a content provider that was saying, look, if you take one or two, international units of growth hormone a day, your head is probably going to grow. And I provided some, what I think is fair and reasonable evidence to contradict or rebut that statement. Just pure silliness. Okay. Today, we're going to talk about the drug Masteron. And there's a reason, again, I want guys to understand why I feel compelled to make these videos. I don't like making these videos, to be honest with you, and I don't like calling people out. The challenge is that when certain individuals have tremendous reach in the community and they create content that is simply not factual, I feel almost compelled to do so. Almost compelled to do so, especially when those individuals are consumers of my content. They see my content and they just ignore it. They continue to present the information they want to present. So, in today's video, we are going to be looking at the claim that Masteron is bad for hair loss, right? It's a drug that you don't want to take, that you want to avoid at all costs, like the plague, is the quote that we'll be quoting here, right? If you're concerned about hair loss. And I'm going to be talking about a study here, but let's just basically go through and again, explain why I'm making this content. I don't have anything against Derek or More Plates, More Dates, and he's most certainly not the only site that I'm going to be doing this to over the next, probably years, to be honest with you, because there's so much bad information out there. The reason I suppose I'm starting with Derek is because I know Derek. He's a masterclass member. I kind of expect more from him, to be honest with you. Masteron, if you follow my content, is one of my favorite drugs. I think it's a fabulous drug for our community, and you should be all over this drug. Inversely, we have someone here that's basically saying it's probably the worst steroid in existence for actually packing on quality tissue. It's just like, okay, that's an opinion, and that's okay. It's also fair to say that it's my opinion that that's not true, and I always feel that anybody is entitled to an opinion and the right to express it, unless there's evidence to contradict that opinion, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So let's be clear. In this video, I'm specifically going to be talking about the application of DHT derivatives, specifically Masteron, with regards to hair loss. This is a screenshot from a page where Derek talks about compound selection and the consequence of hair loss, and he says, I'd advise sticking with compounds that are far more selective for muscle than prostate, and avoiding heavy androgens and DHT derivatives like the plague. Again, the context here is in regard to hair loss. Okay. So let me just make a couple of notes here. Firstly, you need to understand that when testosterone was first synthesized in 1935, they almost immediately began modifying the testosterone molecule to make that molecule more tissue selective. And really all of the DHT derivatives that we have are tissue selective compounds. They are, and they have been developed for, and they have been deployed in the androgen sensitive. So the idea of avoiding DHT derivatives like the plague, that's just like, 180 degrees the opposite. You should be embracing DHT derivatives, for they are, by definition, more selective for muscle than prostate. Okay, Derek, for some reason, seems to believe that because the word DHT is in DHT derivative, that means it's DHT, and I'm sorry, it's not. Okay, so let's address the issue here. Now, the reason I took this screen grab, there's reference after reference after reference after reference on his site. And let's be fair, if you know Derek, he's a very nice guy, but he does represent himself as the hair guy. He's very, very outspoken about hair. A lot of his, videos are about hair, and quite bluntly, that's one of the reasons I'm rebutting this content, because clearly, I think Derek doesn't understand a few things, right? So in this statement, he says, if you decide to slam a gram, and that's slang for 1,000 milligrams of Masteron, it doesn't matter what your hair loss prevention protocol is, hair will fall out of your head like crazy. So I think it's fair to say anybody that read that would be saying, right, so what he's saying is high-level Masteron use, 1,000 milligrams a week, is going to be pretty devastating to hair loss. I think that's a fair summary. That's not biased. That's my reading of it, and I think most people that read that would read this. So let's ask the question, is there any evidence to support or to refute that claim? And quite less than ironically, the reason I chose this particular quote, because it said there are hundreds in his material, is there is actually a study on 1,000 milligrams of Masteron a week and hair loss. Surprise, surprise. Right, okay. So yes, I do agree. This is a study in women. It's fair to say that most of the studies in anabolic steroids that have been designed specifically to be, for the androgen sensitive are in the androgen sensitive. That's not really a surprise. Most testosterone studies are in men. Most anabolic steroid studies where they've modified the testosterone molecule to be less androgenic are in the androgen sensitive. Okay, so here we have a study that looks at a little over his gram a week, 1,050 milligrams a week of Masteron, agreed in women, where this was a long-term study, so it was looking at the efficacy of treatment in breast cancer, where they compared 1,050 milligrams a week of Masteron to 700 milligrams of methyl testosterone a week. Now, what did they see? We're going to limit our attention here to the subject of scalp hair loss because this was looked at in the study. Okay, so there were 25 women given 1,000 milligrams, 1,050 milligrams of Masteron a week. There were 25 women given 70 milligrams of methyl testosterone. Relatively small segment, that's fine, okay? But again, we're looking for evidence here. And what we can basically see here, right, is in the women given 1,000 milligrams of Masteron, there were 2 individuals, 2 out of 25, that reported some scalp hair loss problems. Now, that's not inconsequential. You shouldn't dismiss that. That's 2 women. That's a statistically large enough, group of women to discuss this. But what my point is here is compared to the other group of women that were given only 70 milligrams of methyl testosterone a week, the women that were given the methyl testosterone had double that number of complaints. So a small fraction of the amount of drug given, and yet double the number of complaints. Now, anybody that looked at this study would then have to call into question that idea, okay, that if you gave someone 1,000 milligrams of Masteron, that their hair is going to be a disaster. Why? There's no clinical evidence to support that, nor if you understand the way these drugs are derived, would you basically expect to see that. For some reason, individuals that really don't understand the underlying pharmacology here, nor do they read the studies in detail like this, equate DHT derivative with DHT. And they are 2 different things, guys. They are 2 different things. So let's have a quick summary because I don't want to drag these videos out into 30-minute, 1-hour presentations. I don't think they need to be. I think it's just enough to say this. Look, there are individuals out there with very, very large audiences, with very large reach. Hundreds of thousands of people subscribe to their content. And they produce content that's not factual, okay? If you are interested in anabolic and androgenic steroids, Masteron is a drug that should be right at the top of your list alongside Primobolan and Anavar. Why? Because this drug has been developed specifically for the androgen sensitive, and it has been deployed in the androgen sensitive, and we have fabulous clinical data to talk about in regard to how that drug is tolerated at doses which quite bluntly approach what we're probably going to be using. Who here is going to be using 70 milligrams of methyl testosterone? That's really not a bodybuilding dose. I'm not saying that there's an application for methyl testosterone, but let's say even there was, right? Methylated testosterone, 70 milligrams a week. Twice the number of individuals given 1,000 milligrams of Masteron had hair loss problems. Twice, okay? That's clinical evidence, okay? Now, if you understand the pharmacology, you would go, well, that makes perfect sense. Why would you expect anything different? I'm a little surprised it was so good, right? Given the variation in the doses there. That's a very, very large dose. So please, guys, understand this. A lot of what you see online, a lot of what you read from these guys with large readership is just not factual. It's just not, right? I do my very, very best to educate people. Please understand, Masteron is a fabulous, fabulous, fabulous growth promoter. It is, in my opinion, probably the best drug to start on after testosterone, okay? And you don't need to be freaking out about your hair, all right? If you were to want to rank steroids in sort of like, you know, a hair-friendly manner, then I kind of understand why people want to do that sort of stuff. It doesn't make sense to me, but just understand this, all right? Here's a study where they gave 70 milligrams of testosterone to people, women, agreed. They had 4 out of 25 women report hair loss problems. They gave 1,050 milligrams of Masteron to 25 women, and they had half that number report hair loss problems. I'm hoping for those people that are interested in clinical evidence to support our understanding of mechanistic action, okay, that this is very comforting, okay? It's very comforting. Masteron is a fabulous growth promoter. It's a fabulous tool, really. Please, you should put it on your list of drugs that you should consider basal PEDs that you're going to be living with every day for the next 10 years or however long you've been doing this. And because, you know, people think that, you know, in Masteron, I don't know why people think Masteron, you know, is so bad for the hair. It's, you know, I've heard countless claims to that case. And when you sit down with the individuals and you ask them about what they were doing, and I explain to them, well, this is why you had a hair loss problem. It's not the Masteron. Okay. So that's it for today's video. I hope you found that informative, and I look forward to seeing you at the next Victor Black Masterclass. Sawadee ka.